At my brother's graduation, I found my seat, outside, next to the trash cans. He smirked. Guess you don't count. I took my gift, stood up, and left without saying a word. Minutes later, he went pale and screamed. That day, the morning air smelled like fresh-cut grass and sun-warmed pavement. Somewhere inside the auditorium, the principal's voice was counting down the roll call. Parents shuffled in their seats, adjusting ties and dresses, smiling for photos. My mother fussed with her scarf. My father avoided eye contact. I clutched the gift I'd wrapped the night before, smoothed my deep emerald dress, and chose silence. No argument. No tears. I stood and walked out into the chilly October air, letting the early sunlight wash over my face. 5 minutes later, inside the hall, a scream split the air so sharply it could have cut glass. Here's what happened next. The town's high school auditorium was quaint, the kind where everyone knew everyone, yet the echoes made it feel vast. My brother Brandon had insisted on this venue because of its polished wooden floors and lofty ceilings. The classic graduation aesthetic, he'd said. Rows of folding chairs filled the hall, adorned with little program cards. All the chairs inside were carefully assigned. All except mine. Mine was shoved into a hallway outside, right beside the trash bins, a view of nothing but concrete walls and a fire exit. I had driven 2 hours alone, replaying my mother's last text in my head. Please, just don't make a scene. It's Brandon's day. That was all I had ever been to him. An afterthought, a warning label. Don't make noise. Don't take space. Don't remind anyone there's another sibling. Growing up, our family had the same dynamic as every cliché you see in awkward Instagram photos. The perfect golden child, and the quiet one in the corner. Brandon had trophies, ribbons, and the easiest smile to forgive any wrong. I had report cards collecting dust and praise reserved for later, or never at all. He'd cry, get rescued, and celebrated. I'd clean up the messes and get ignored. Mom always said I was low maintenance. Dad called me independent. Both phrases meant invisible was convenient. The last time I had been with the entire family was Christmas 3 years ago. I remember the living room smelling like cinnamon and pine needles, the fake fire crackling in the fireplace. Brandon had gone to a winter ski trip with his friends, and for once, the house felt lighter. Mom asked me to fetch a photo album from the top shelf, but instead, I found a small, worn notebook. Its pages smelled faintly of vanilla and paper. I flipped through it curious, until I realized each entry celebrated Brandon's milestones. First day of school, spelling bee victory, college acceptance. Not a single line about me. Not my birthdays, not my achievements, not even my name. When I asked, Mom smiled softly, as if the question were silly. You never needed attention, honey. You've always been fine. That night, I learned there are 2 kinds of forgotten. Being lost and being erased. I thought about that notebook as I walked down the hallway, my heels clicking on the polished linoleum. Through the open door, I glimpsed the auditorium. Mom in her navy blue silk dress, Dad fussing with his tie, Brandon in his cap and gown, glowing with the pride he demanded. He glanced my way once, just long enough to give a smirk that could freeze blood. The same smirk he'd worn since childhood whenever he wanted to remind me I was smaller, quieter, less necessary. A staff member intercepted me near the hallway exit. You're, Miss Carter? She asked hesitantly. Yes, I said. Her polite smile faltered as she scanned her clipboard. Your seat is, out here. I laughed softly, waiting for her to correct the mistake. She didn't. Hallway seating. Next to the trash cans. Perfect. I followed her gesture toward a folding chair by the service doors. From there I could see the ceremony through the tall glass panes, every proud parent, every flash of camera, every applauding hand, while a concrete wall separated me from them, literal and figurative. I set my gift on my lap, a small box wrapped in shimmering silver paper, tied with a ribbon I had fussed over for hours, and stared at the glass. Inside, Brandon was shaking hands with his principal, smiling for photos. Mom adjusted her scarf. Dad clapped in quiet approval. Outside, I sat in the crisp hallway air and whispered the same lie I had told myself for years. It's fine. I don't need them. But the truth pressed firmly against my chest. Maybe I didn't need them. But that didn't mean they had the right to treat me like I didn't exist. I tried to disappear into the shadows, as always, but the hallway was anything but quiet. Staff shuffled past, wheeling carts and laughing under their breath. Every time a door swung open, I caught fleeting glimpses of the polished auditorium, the lights, the perfect ceremony, the applause for a brother who had long forgotten I was his sister. Then the laughter shifted. I looked up and saw Brandon coming toward me. His gown trailed behind like smoke. In one hand he held his diploma, in the other, his smug self-satisfaction. He stopped just short of the doorway, his reflection doubled in the glass. Two versions of him, one admired inside, one cruel outside. "Well," he said, tilting his head. "Looks like they finally figured out where you belong." I blinked. What's that supposed to mean? He smiled that half-smile I had learned to read in childhood, the one that preceded every slight, every stolen spotlight. "Guess you don't count." The words landed like knives I didn't see coming. Like arithmetic, a miscalculation I was meant to accept. For a moment, I said nothing. My throat dried, swallowing pride like a stone. Behind him, a photographer called. "Grad, we need you back." He didn't move. He wanted me to cry, beg, react, to prove his point. I didn't. I only stared long enough for the corners of his smile to twitch. "You know," I said quietly, "there's always been space for both of us. You're the one who keeps shrinking it." His eyes narrowed. "Oh, please. Not everything's about you. This is my day. You could at least pretend to be happy for me once." I let out a small laugh, a breath escaping from a crack in the walls of my patience. "You made sure I couldn't even sit inside. What exactly am I celebrating?" For the first time, I saw a flicker of something in him. Hesitation. Unease. Then he straightened, lifting his chin like a king who refused to feel shame. "You always twist things. Maybe Mom was right. You make everything difficult, Amy." The name hit harder than I expected. I pictured the notebook, each page filled with Brandon's life and none of mine. "I'm not difficult," I said. "You just never liked that I see things the way they are." He rolled his eyes. "You sound just like Dad. Pathetic and bitter. Face it, Amy. Nobody needs your approval. Not here. Not ever." He turned on his heel, leaving a trail of arrogance and cheap cologne. I watched him go, my chest burning in a way that felt clean, not suffocating. When the door closed, I picked up my silver box. The gift I'd carefully chosen the night before, wrapped with silent patience. I traced the ribbon once and slipped it into my bag. If they didn't want me inside, fine. But I wasn't leaving empty-handed. Not this time. For a while, I just sat there, fingers pressed against the smooth edge of the box, listening to the distant applause leaking through the glass. It was supposed to be his moment, a perfect picture. I imagined Mom wiping tears, Dad clapping awkwardly, Brandon basking in the attention, the same scene I had watched from the edges my whole life. Then I smiled. The silver box wasn't just a gift. It was evidence. Proof. Something to shatter the illusion he had built of perfection, control, and entitlement. Weeks earlier I had discovered messages between him and a friend planning his schemes. Exaggerating stories to relatives, subtly undermining others, boasting about privileges. I hadn't used it. Until today. I walked back to the entrance, placing the silver box atop the stack of gifts, neatly labeled. Inside, a folded note lay atop a printout of his texts. Not a threat, just the truth. I checked my reflection in the glass one last time. My heart didn't race. It was calm, steady, like the dawn before a storm. Then I walked toward the parking lot. The autumn air hit me, crisp and freeing. The applause faded, distant, meaningless. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. I reached my car. No dramatic farewell. No speeches. Just the quiet click of the door, the hum of the engine, and the reflection of the auditorium lights fading behind me. Minutes later, inside, Brandon opened the box. His hand froze on the note, then the printouts. His smile faltered. Eyes widening, pale as paper. A scream tore from him, high and piercing. A sound I had waited years to hear, not out of cruelty, but for closure. Inside the hall, the parents were stunned. Mom's scarf trembled in her hands. Dad's lips pressed tight. No one moved to stop the moment. Outside, I started the car and whispered, "Let the truth find its way." The day that had begun with humiliation ended with freedom. For me, at least my heart was at peace.